to do is take this learning that happened in the develop phase and make it make more sense, extend our ability to do something with it. A good strategy in the extend phase is to explain to someone else. So if maybe you just learned about the second law of thermodynamics. You did that in the develop phase. Now, if you want to extend your knowledge, you want to make it stickier, you want to make sure you've got it, you go and you use that knowledge to explain it to somebody else. In the traditional sense, we think of the extend phase is where we solve problems using this knowledge. Whether it's a closed book problem, an open-ended problem, a research problem, we're taking the knowledge that we and skills that we acquire in the develop phase and applying them. In the IRE model, we often talk about a deep learning activity. It's in a deep learning activity that we take the knowledge that we gained and now put it into practice. So another strategy here is to seek feedback. So you've got the knowledge, you want to make sure that you have it. So you find some ways, whether it's with people, but you find ways to validate that you in fact do have the learning. Perhaps another word we could use with extend is the word application. All right, so now we go to the next step. We've acquired the knowledge, we've extended it, now we're going to relate it. Our understandings are a great big interconnected web with all of our other understandings. When we gain new knowledge, we need to connect it to our previous knowledge. And think of a lot of you have done something before called a concept map. Well, if you can make a visual mapping that connects the new learning to the old learning, a concept map would be a way of doing that. So connections to other knowledge. A great way that Ulrich talks about relating is making analogies. There's some good passages in his book that talk about how when we learn something new, we compare it to some other kind of understanding that we might have. Learning a new process, making analogy to an old process. A lot of times we make those analogies to things that we do in our life that aren't necessarily a part of our education. I like to exercise, so sometimes when I'm learning something new, I make an analogy to lifting weights or playing basketball or something on that order. All right, that is relate. And then the last step is something that we call rethink, and it's really about bringing this back to our previous, let me say that again. It's taking these other 5 steps and packaging them up to be used for the future. It is where we practice retention. It is where we do some interleaving, and interleaving is when we take new knowledge and we're trying to not forget it, so we practice going back and repeating it to ourselves. And interleaving is when, for instance, if you had 2 final exams to study for, one was statics and one was calculus, and you said, well, I'm going to spend 6 hours today studying for calculus, and then I'm going to spend 6 hours tomorrow studying for statics. What interleaving shows is that you're actually better off spending an hour on calculus and then an hour on statics, and an hour on calculus and an hour on statics. So interleaving is a part of rethinking. It's reflecting. It's reviewing our performances. And perhaps you've heard the word metacognition. All of these are examples of rethinking. Well, the only other thing I'd like to add to this is the concept of monitoring. I'm going to take red and I'm going to draw an arrow here. And there's some really good research that says if we monitor our progress, our attitudes, we monitor, are we meeting our goals? Are we doing it in the amount of time that we want? Are we making our way through all of the steps of the framework? That active monitoring really boosts performance. So you will see as